Let's now get into Module 4, which is how to host your code on the Windows file system and the caveats associated with that. So let me start by saying that when you host your code on the Windows file system, the advantage you have is all your text editor and other tools access the code directly. So there's no special configuration required in that sense. The drawback, however, is the fact that when you host your code in the Windows side of things and you're accessing everything through the Linux, it is slower. So that is something to take note of. But there are, again, pros to being able to use everything in Windows and access your code. So let's dive right in on how to do this. So in the previous two modules, I shared with you how to install your server and also how to automate the startup. So it starts up right when you launch the Ubuntu program in Windows. So now I want to also tell you some of the items that I recommend doing immediately after you complete the previous two modules, which is the first is to update npm. Sorry, you have to use the sudo command. And now you can clean the cache. So let's do that. And let's upgrade node. Now we have 6.6. There we go. So let's just check our npm version and our node versions, and they are the latest at the time of this recording. So in addition to that, there are some useful packages that will be needed when we install our Laravel app and other repos. So let us first install unzip. And I like this package because it makes running or launching Composer installs much faster. So let me start this up and share with you the repo on GitHub. So it essentially is a plugin that downloads packages in parallel. So this significantly speeds up the installation process. So I always install Prestissimo whenever I set up a new dev environment. Great. So now that we've got everything upgraded and set up, let us dive into the meat of this course module, which is to set things up on the Windows file system and run your Laravel app that way. So the first thing we need to do is choose the location where we want to park our code. So if I look here, we should have no folders. So let's create one. Uh, but it needs to link into the Windows file system. So in Windows, I have set up a code folder. It's on the C drive root. And in order to link to that, you have to create a symbolic link. So link symbolic, and then the mount point is C. And as I said, my folder is called code, and I'm just going to call it WinCode for the purpose of this course. So if I look now, we have WinCode, and you can see the it's symbolically linked to the code folder. So now if we go inside, and I have some files in there, but we are linked, and that is actually the Windows file system. So now the one error that you would have, and I want to address it before we even get started with installing a Laravel package or Laravel repo, is this issue where when you try to load some commands, you get an error, and the operation not permitted error with a chmod operation. Anyway, I don't want to bore you with the details, but there is an error that you would face. And the way to avoid that is to first, you will need to unmount your your mount point, which is the C drive. Sorry, I'm in the target, which obviously won't work. Let's try that again. And then we mount it back, but with the metadata flag, which is what prevents, which is what actually is needed for things to behave properly. So once we do that, we are all good. But this is not permanent. So if we scroll down even further, we have an instruction here to edit this location here. So let's use sudo vim, and we have to add in this data, auto mount options metadata, which means the next time we start up WSL and Ubuntu, this will automatically be flagged to the C drive mount point. So that is done. And just so you know, I have updated this on the file. So how to unmount and remount, and then also set up the WSL conf. So it's all here in the instruction file. So now that we have that, we are ready to install our first Laravel app. So let's begin. So let's go back into our WinCode folder and Laravel, new Laravel. And here we go, the application is ready. So now, because that we have this Laravel app in the Windows file system, we're actually able to open our code editor. So let me open up Sublime here and open the folder and open up Laravel. And here we are. And we're able to make changes right away. So I have created a database called Laravel root, and if you remember, the password was root at 123. So let us save this, and then as a sanity check, let us close this out. Let's just make sure within Linux, if I cat the env, you will see that the change that I just made is available in the Windows subsystem Linux in WSL. So now let's get Laravel up and running. So let's pull in the UI package because I want some authentication scaffolding out of the box. So now that we pulled in Laravel UI, let us load the view auth scaffolding. And we now need to npm install and npm run dev to compile the assets. So let's give that a moment. And we're done. So let's migrate our database and test things out in the browser. So the migration was successful. And please take note that the one caveat in WSL is that you would actually need to have the host file updated because the Windows needs to know where to reach out to access any sites that you may have. So we do have a Valet installed. So let's first park the domain. So anything under the WinCode folder is automatically set up. So we should now have a Valet test URL for that code we just installed for this WinCode Laravel. And now let us do the updating of the host file. So it should just be Laravel test, and it will be in this location, C Windows System 32 drivers etc, and then you will need to choose the host file. Remember, when you open Notepad or your text editor, you have to run it in as an administrator in order to make the edit to the host file. So now that's done, I save it, and we should now be able to visit our site. So Laravel, not .com, but Laravel test. And here we are. Laravel is working. So let's register the user. So use my email, suggested password, and we're in. Let's make sure that the authentication is actually working, and let's log in with the same credentials. And there we are. Now, another advantage of, again, having your code set up on the Windows file system is when you have a repo and there's some and Git changes are being made, you can use a tool like Sublime Merge to essentially view your changes by just pulling in the folder or the repo into Sublime Merge. So here, just for demo purposes, I'm pulling in this Laravel LMS project, and we're just going to make a small change to the project to make it a little dirty. I'm going to just run check the files in here, and I'm going to just update one of the files to something different. So let's see here. Let's use the homestead.yaml.example file, and let's just rename it to homestead.yaml. Okay, now you can see it's changed to yellow, so it's dirty. And now let's open this repo up in Sublime Merge. So file, open repository. I use Sublime Merge, but feel free to use um, whichever Git editor that you like. You can of course use the console version of Git, and it works well. But having things set up on your Windows file system or Windows OS, you can use these tools right out of the box.